Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Yesterday morning, from 9 until about 1 o'clock, this room was full of tables. Grace Smith House gave their volunteer thank you tea party, is what it was. They had tables that were going in diagonal, all set with cloth tablecloths, with teapots, with coordinated flower arrangements spilling from the teapots. They had trays, like cake plates, full of tea sandwiches. They had dessert, more cake plates full of homemade goodies. They came around, the directors and the employed staff of Grace Smith House were serving all of the volunteers, kind of like our Maundy Thursday service, where everything's upside down and the leaders are the servants. So I was Ann Harrington's guest, and I sat next to her, and nobody at my table knew what my other identity was. And it was kind of fun. I was just a volunteer with the volunteers, and they came and kept refilling our tea. We had English breakfast tea, and then we had an herbal dessert tea, and we were treated. It was beautiful. It was full of good feeling. And then I segued, while they cleaned up, I went out to the big festival. This is the second annual Festival of the Falls. The business owners in Wappingers Falls decided last year that we needed a festival to bring more people into our community and show off our downtown. It was a huge hit last year. This year it was a bigger hit. There were people everywhere. Children are the focus at the Festival of the Falls, so they were playing games, riding the train around the perimeter of the Zion Park. Everybody was having a marvelous time. When the fire engines started arriving, we thought it was part of the festival. Why wouldn't we? And nobody seemed to pay much attention. It wasn't until I actually, after visiting all the people that I knew at all the booths everywhere and waving to everyone, I went home to have something to drink, another cup of tea, believe it or not. And there I smelled the smoke. And then I saw more fire engines. So I went out, as people do who live here in the village. Something happens in the village, we all come out and we all talk like days of old. What's happening? There's a fire. Let's go look. Right? Right. So we all, at a safe distance, we're looking and watching as these plumes of smoke were coming out of the building that houses Rice and Beans, those of you who know that store. We could only see it coming out of one roof, but very quickly it started coming out of other roofs. And very quickly the mood at the Festival of the Falls changed to shock, and then to sadness, and people were crying. So there was this community event, which unfortunately was revolved around the demise of our downtown. They were here to celebrate downtown. So as the enormity of it hit, you could see people in different stages of shock, tears, a lot of people were crying. And I went back up into my house because breathing the smoke was getting difficult. It was that smoky. This backyard of ours was full of smoke. The front was full of smoke. Got down at the ground level, it was smoky. So I went into the house and I told myself it was because of the noise of the fire engines and because of the smoke that I wanted to go be with friends. What do we want to do when there's a crisis? We want to be with our family and friends. I already had a date with Barbara Gutzler and her partner Karen. They were having me over for dinner. I said, please come pick me up at Evans School. Main Street is closed. I wanted to be with people. I told them it's because I didn't want to breathe the smoke, but that's not the reason. So I walked to Evans School. They picked me up and I got a respite from it. But when they brought me back home, I went to the back fence and there was Matt Alexander and Tony, the owner of the antique shop, which was a total loss. And the three of us were just standing there not saying anything, talking about insurance eventually and what can be salvaged. I told Matt Alexander that we have a lot of space at Zion Church And if you need any space, please use us. This morning after the 9 o'clock service, the American Legion representatives came and said, may we use your space to collect the abundance of clothing and food and dishware, things to give the people who have been, they're staying at hotels, but there's 6 families I know are involved that lost their housing, lost everything they owned. So they're going to be coming as soon as we finish this service to bring the overflow of gifts into our cubbies and using our space. But one of the unfortunate things, or maybe it's fortunate, that we have today is this juxtaposition of fire as destruction and the representation of the Holy Spirit as fire. And as we know, the day of Pentecost is about community, about this tight little band of apostles who had the Holy Spirit come amongst them. And like Moses and the burning tree, they became the burning tree. The fire was with them and not consuming them. And they were having ripple effects in this little hothouse of prayer in the upper room. It went out the windows, down the stairs, and spread to the entire community of Jerusalem. All these languages, all these people felt strangely drawn in. So a centrifugal force was pulling them in. And as they're pulled in, something new was born. Because the Holy Spirit is a creative spirit. And because the story isn't over yet, something is being created new. Even with this fire disaster, something is being created new, and that's what we believe through our faith. But if you look at what Luke is saying in his story, and this book from Acts is Luke talking to us, he starts the Gospel of Luke talking about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit came upon Mary, hovered over her, and completely overshadowed her, giving her a new child in her womb, who grew within her. The Holy Spirit came on her cousin Elizabeth, who, when Mary went to meet Elizabeth, the child John the Baptist, leaped in her womb, and Mary looked at Elizabeth, who was full of the Holy Spirit. So Elizabeth became the burning tree. And then Zechariah, when he named the baby that came out of Elizabeth, said his name is John. And Zechariah was full of the Holy Spirit. And then Jesus comes to the river to be baptized by John the Baptist and goes into the water of death, rises up out of the water, a new creation. And what comes down from heaven and rests on his head? The Holy Spirit. Everything that comes out of Jesus from that time forward is Holy Spirit. When he looks at people, he gives you the Holy Spirit. When he saves your life from destruction, he gives you the Holy Spirit. When he gives you bread and wine to eat and drink, he's giving us the Holy Spirit. And then he's crucified. And Luke wants us to know that part of this festival goes back and reclaims that resurrection that happened as part of the crucifixion. Because the early Christians thought that was one thing too horrible. That because he died on the cross, that meant that he was anathema, that he was toxic, that he was evil, because only bad people were crucified. But we don't believe that, do we? And why is it? What is it that changed, that we can look at the cross and see hope? What changed? That's what changed on Pentecost Day, was reclaiming a horrible death, because it was the beginning of life itself, and a life that we have never seen the likes of before or since. That this Holy Spirit that is burning within each of us, we are shy about. We don't like to claim our own Holy Spirit. How many people in here like to brag about their gifts? We like to look to somebody else and either criticize somebody else or bless them because they're a wonderful example of the Holy Spirit. But this day is for each of us to claim our piece of the Holy Spirit. That we each have unique gifts, and God uses us, here's the key, when God pleases, not when we demand. When God needs us, are we available to God? When God says, you have the only gift for this job, and this job belongs to you, are you ready to say, okay, send me? Send me now? This is where we get sent. We claim the crucifixion as the beginning of a new birth. We don't minimize death and destruction and disease and famine, but we claim it as an opportunity to change the world. You with me? We had an interesting show of solidarity and community that I just want to point out to you this weekend. Because I live in the village, I was part of this community that was grieving and watching a tragedy as it unfolded. This morning at the 7:30 service, I had people raise their hand if they knew nothing about this when they came to church today. How many of you knew nothing about it till you came to church today? This is the reality of our community now, that some people are there in the middle of it. Other people are on Facebook and they're right there and they found out about it through Facebook. But some of our community waits to get the bulletin in the mail. And that's how we're connected to Zion. How many read the bulletin or the newsletter, the mission bells? That's how a lot of us stay connected. This hasn't made it there yet. But we, as a new community, always refreshing and renewing ourselves, have to realize that we are disparate. Not everybody is on the same page. That we need to share the joys as well as the sorrows and the grief and the tragedy. This is who we share it with. This is where we get our strength. And this is where God binds us together in order to throw us out and use us till we're all used up.